Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is January 26th, 2024, and let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So I have lots of things to cover today, and before I begin, guys, please subscribe to my channel and like my video if you enjoy my content. Now, let's get to it. And I first want to talk about Germany and another military aid package that they're going to provide to Ukraine. As you can see in this list, from what appears to be a new air defense system, the RST, which has proven itself to be an excellent air defense system, and maybe could be behind several of the recent Russian jet fighters and planes being downed by the Ukrainian forces. So it could be very well this system that was behind it. Gepards, more artillery rounds of 230,000 of them. 80 Leopard 1A5, so this is the first iteration of the Leopard. As you can see in this picture, some additional BMPs, additional engineering machines and bridge layers, so that's excellent as well. You need those logistics, those machines for the logistics. Armored vehicles, about 450 of them. That is a huge number here. And I'm imagining it's probably just some light infantry like vehicles like the likes of Max Pros or Humvee, demining systems, drones, radar systems, and intelligence systems. So, you know, I really have to give a huge thank you to the German people. In the last few weeks, the Germans have really upped their help, and that has been extremely surprising. And right now, like currently, the German government and the German people are doing far more than the United States, and that is very sad to say, unfortunately. And also, talking about Germany's help, of course, there's now the big debate about Taurus cruise missiles, and currently there's a deal that seems to be discussed between Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and Germany. It's not very certain what type of deal they're trying to break out, but transferring Taurus missiles to London, which would then perhaps be transferred to Ukraine, from what I understand. But let's also understand that this is not going to be the wonder weapon that's going to end the war. We're putting way too much emphasis on the Taurus cruise missiles. Like, even if Ukraine was to receive them, I seriously doubt it's going to be hundreds of them. It most likely will be a few dozen at best. They will be always delivered in batches. What Ukraine needs right now is hundreds, if not thousands, of these different missiles, whether it be Taurus missiles, cruise, the Storm Shadows, the Atacams. Ukraine needs thousands of them. Let's not forget about Desert Storm in the 90s. How did the coalition manage to destroy the Iraqis so quickly? 100,000 sorties, air campaigns. That you can only imagine the amount of bombs and missiles that were used that obliterated Saddam Hussein's army. And that's what's needed right now for Ukraine. Ukraine, if you think that a few dozen, Taurus missiles are going to change the course of the war, it will not, unfortunately. Ukraine is facing a massive army. And as much as I, like to think that the Ukrainians have really wounded catastrophically the Russian army, they will still continue on pushing because they have a massive manpower advantage to the Ukrainians, and they can still rely on partners that are reliable, such as North Korea and Iran and even China, which Ukraine currently doesn't really have. And we know that the United States should have been the most reliable partner of them all, and now it's pretty much at the bottom, unfortunately. And now you have countries picking up the tab, such as Germany and Britain and many other countries that are, much smaller, but they understand the consequences of allowing Russia to win. So huge thank you to German people, and let's keep that help coming. And I really hope that basically my next slide, I'll talk about it, that the United States will really change its course in terms of support of Ukraine. And unfortunately, right now, it doesn't look too good. The House of Representative Speaker, I think it's, forgot his name, Mike Johnson or something Johnson, basically pronounced that this bill that should have been passed, like several weeks ago, that would have provided help not only to Ukraine, but also Israel, and Ukraine will get the bulk of it, about $60 billion. Again, they're trying to rework this bill because the Republicans want to have some more sort of strict policies against migrants. Essentially, at this point, it feels like sabotage from the Republican side, that they don't want to approve this bill, even if it's been reworked so many times and the Biden administration is trying to compromise. And it's extremely frustrating to see that essentially the American politicians right now are sabotaging Ukraine's fight against Russia, withholding this essential help to Ukraine worth of $60 billion of military assistance, right? We know that the United States has a mighty defense sector, and it really has the resources to help Ukraine win this against Russia. And to be even fair, not only against the Republicans, but the Biden administration has always pursued this de-escalation policy. Let's not escalate this. And also, there's a lot to blame on the Biden administration, which seems to be very unwilling to really commit 100% into providing all the weapons necessary to win. Right, and it's the best return on investment I've already talked about in the past. The United States is getting so much out of this. The Ukrainians are willing to fight. They're not asking for outside military physical assistance, some American troops or German troops or British troops. The Ukrainians understand that this is their fight and they'll do it. They'll sacrifice their lives if they have to, but they need the resources and the support. And as you can see here, again, there's a lot of infighting within the Republicans. Mitch McConnell also basically said that he believes, so he's one of those kind of older Republicans, old school ones that believe in really destroying anything that is close to sort of this Soviet communist Russian sort of influence. And unfortunately, nothing's really happening, even though you have some very prominent Republicans that are, they're saying, let's pass this, we need to help Ukraine. So I'm just trying to be fair here in my criticism. I think really inside the Capitol and the American politics, there's just such a mess right now. And, right now, if I'm looking at it from the last few months, there appears that it shows that the US is really giving up on its values of defending democracy around the world. It's giving up on its best partners, its best allies that are counting on the United States. And you see the United States just kind of backtracking, trying to de-escalate, and really not understanding the reality of things right now. You give some breathing room to these countries such as Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. They use it as a green light to continue provoking, I should say, us into war. And I really hope I'm wrong here. I really, truly hope. I know that the United States, has a great history, and I really hope that this doesn't end as a sad story, especially if Trump is elected. The other news is, let's talk a little bit about Putin's Achilles heel. And this is the oil sector, the fossil fuel sector of Russia. And this is one of the very few things of value, resources that Russia has that it can sell to the world, which is crucial for Putin's regime survival at this point. And this is why, since January of this year, we start seeing more and more, at least 5 or 6 Ukrainian drone attacks against oil refineries and oil terminal facilities in Russia. And as you can see in this article by the Atlantic Council, they mentioned that this is creating serious headaches for the Kremlin. Russia's vastness and the sheer size of the country's energy industry make it virtually impossible to defend itself. And because also the bulk of Russia's air defenses have been deployed to occupy Crimea and the front lines, essentially they have a dilemma. And so they have to decide whether to reduce protection for the army in Ukraine or leave critical infrastructure on the home front exposed to potential attacks. And so this is a serious hit to Putin's wallet, because this is one of the main resources that Russia can easily sell, and they can make a lot of money out of it. And this is how Putin rose to power, how he became so rich. It's through really the oil sector. And if this industry is crippled by the Ukrainians, the collapse of the Russian regime will be accelerated. It doesn't mean it's going to be tomorrow, but it will certainly be accelerated, because that's one way that Putin keeps this entire system working, is through the oil money. And gas money as well. So everything that's fossil fuels and resources as well, whether it be minerals that Russia has plenty of. So as I've said previously, and again, I really repeat myself here, but I think it's really important to highlight, this is what Ukraine needs to be doing on a weekly basis. And I'm really happy to see this. Honestly, this is what needs to be repeated on a weekly basis this year. And it seems like Ukraine is heading that course, because today as well, now it's unconfirmed, we don't have a lot of images and videos, but it appears that another explosion happened in Vyborg, which is not too far from St. Petersburg, in the Gulf of Finland, if I may. So again, very close between the Finnish-Russian border. And there is indeed an oil terminal or oil refinery in Vyborg. So I hope that this is another successful Ukrainian strike which essentially decommissioned this oil facility or oil refinery facility. Again, we know that what happened a few days ago on Tuapse in the Black Sea, so another Russian oil terminal that was hit by Ukrainian drones, and now it's been confirmed by Rosneft that they have completely shut down the facility, and most likely will be shut down not for a few weeks but maybe even for a few months, because finding those crucial parts for these oil refineries isn't something that you can do within a few days. It takes weeks and months because, well, Russia can't produce those high-tech components necessary for such a high-tech facility such as an oil terminal. So this is creating massive headaches, and this is what needs to happen on a weekly basis in Russia. So I really hope that the Ukrainians will continue on with this campaign on Russian infrastructure and legitimate military targets. Next, let's talk about the Ilyushin 76 crash. And guess what? The Russians were claiming, and I didn't talk about it in my last video, that somehow they were transporting 67 or 70 Ukrainian prisoners of war, which is a first. I don't think they've ever transferred prisoners of war through an Ilyushin 76 plane, and especially if they're planning to do in Belgorod, why would they fly so close to the border? They could have just used trains or trucks to transport the Ukrainians to have this exchange. So to me, it sounds like a very another lie by Russia, evidently amongst the millions of lies that they have told us in the last 2 years. But another thing that looks very fishy for Russia is that they're rejecting an international investigation. So they don't want anyone to be present and actually have an unbiased or perhaps a more neutral investigation to this. So Russia can only fool its own people, especially in regards to this story. It's again playing the victim card, again fully knowing that if they hadn't started this conflict from the very beginning, they wouldn't have such catastrophic losses, and they would not have lost this Ilyushin 76 or a few weeks ago the A-50U AWACS plane or the Ilyushin 22 plane or any of those other jet fighters that Russia's lost in the hundreds at this point. So everything the Russian regime says are lies and manipulations, and remember that, guys. I don't think this should be news to you. And lastly, some excellent news. So I want to end this video with some really great news. And this is a story about the Ukrainians building fortifications in the northern part of Ukraine. Again, this is absolutely crucial. This is an investment that Zelensky talked about at the end of the year in 2023 about needing to reinforce positions, and especially in areas like Sumy, Chernihiv. It's very important. Why? Because this will deter the Russians to commit to offensives there. We've heard some reports and news that Russia could start. And again, let's look at the map so it gives you a little bit more of an idea. At the Sumy Oblast, just gonna go to the deep state map so you can see that Sumy is here. So it shares a very long border between Bryansk and Kursk, and even parts, I believe, no, not fully Belgorod, but essentially shares a really massive border with Russia, and this will deter the Russians from trying to plot some offensives to distract the Ukrainians. They're currently defending the front line in Luhansk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia, Kherson. So again, these are some of the pictures that you guys can see. So there's already some trucks and machines working on building these trenches, putting in the bunkers, and even under bunker facilities where soldiers can be housed as well. And this is an investment right now of $500 million or $18 billion in Ukrainian hryvnias. And there's even other oblasts that are coming in to help from Lviv and I believe Kiev oblasts to help up with the construction of this massive project. And again, oops, I actually didn't go back to the main slide, but you can see the pictures here of the work that's currently ongoing. And again, as I said, not only is it important that it happens in Sumy, now let's go back to the map, but it's also important that it happens, all this, new construction of defenses needs to happen in Luhansk and Donetsk and Zaporizhia at this point. You don't need to do it here in Kherson because you have the Dnieper River as a natural barrier. So it's really crucial for the Ukrainians to solidify their positions in the Zaporizhia front, especially Zaporizhia, because it's so open and so easy for troops to move in. But essentially, all of this sector, whether it be from Zaporizhia all the way up to Kharkiv is a little bit more hilly, as you can see, a lot more terrain. But especially in the south in Zaporizhia and Donetsk, it's much more open field. So the Ukrainians need to really start working on building heavy fortifications and trenches like what we saw the Russians do in Zaporizhia. So that's the video for today, guys. Let me know, guys, what you think about any of the topics that I covered today. A huge thank you for support. Subscribe to my channel, like my video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace and Slava Ukraini.